My name is Haley Turner, and the night my sister called my award stupid, my phone lit up with one simple notification that said everything about my place in this family. I was standing in my tiny kitchen, still wearing my stained apron, staring at the official email on my laptop that said I was about to receive the biggest award of my career. My hands were shaking when I opened our family group chat and typed, "Hey, I have some news. I'm getting an award next week. There's a ceremony. It's being broadcast live. I would really love it if you could be there." I watched the 3 little dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. Finally, my sister replied, "We don't have time for your pointless award. We're going to dinner that night." A second later, my mom chimed in, "Don't blame us, honey, we already made reservations." My dad didn't say a word. He just liked my sister's message, like he was co-signing it. I stared at the screen for a long second, feeling that familiar burn in my chest, the one I'd learned to swallow since I was a kid. Then I took a breath, forced a smile even though no one could see it, and typed back, "That's fine. Have a nice dinner." They sent a couple of thumbs up and a laughing emoji, like we had just agreed on something trivial, like I had not just invited them to the biggest moment of my life. That night, while they were clinking glasses over pasta at their favorite restaurant, the live broadcast started on the TV above their heads. And what flashed across that screen in the middle of their perfect little dinner made every single one of them freeze in their seats. If you want to know how that stupid award turned into the one thing they could never ignore, keep listening. I didn't always know my place in this family so clearly. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I honestly thought things were normal, that every little sister was just background noise to her older sister's highlight reel. My sister, Danielle, was the star from the minute she learned how to flip her hair and smile for a camera. She was 5 years older, loud, charming, the kind of girl who could turn a trip to the grocery store into a full story on Instagram. My parents, Robert and Elaine, said they were just supporting her confidence, but the truth was, our house revolved around her moods, her schedules, her crises. When Danielle didn't make the cheer squad one year, we had a family meeting about it, followed by ice cream and a pep talk. When I won a middle school cooking contest with a simple roasted chicken recipe I'd practiced for weeks, my mom said, "That's nice, honey," then turned to ask Danielle how her group project was going. By the time I was 13, I had figured out the only place I felt seen was in the kitchen. You know those kids who disappear into video games? I disappeared into recipes, while Danielle was out trying new salons or begging my parents for money for another weekend trip. I was glued to cooking videos on an old tablet, pausing and rewinding to learn how to chop onions without crying or how to make bread rise properly in a chilly Portland kitchen. I started baking cookies and small loaves of banana bread, handing them to neighbors just to see someone's face light up when they took a bite. Eventually, I began selling them at the local farmers market on Saturdays. I'd stand there behind a shaky folding table with my little handwritten sign, and strangers would tell me, "This is amazing. You made this yourself?" And for a few hours, I felt like I mattered. At home, though, it was different. My dad would sigh about how much time I spent playing in the kitchen, and my mom kept telling me I should be more like Danielle and think about a real career, something glamorous or corporate. They listened to Danielle talk for hours about her job at a trendy boutique and her plans to blow up on social media. But when I tried to explain a new recipe I was testing, they would nod politely, check their phones, and change the subject. I learned early that in my family, what I loved was considered a hobby at best, a distraction at worst. Have you ever felt that quiet sting of realizing the people who are supposed to know you best only see you as the extra in someone else's story? That feeling became the fuel that pushed me out of our house and straight into the one place where my passion actually counted. Leaving Portland felt less like chasing a dream and more like sneaking out of a life that was never really mine. When I got accepted into a culinary program in New York, my parents treated it like I'd signed up for an extended summer camp instead of a serious school. Danielle joked, "So you're going to spend all that money just to learn how to chop vegetables?" My mom shushed her, but she was smiling when she did it. My dad hugged me at the airport and said, "Just make sure you have a backup plan, okay? Not everyone can make it in food." I nodded, but inside I made a promise to myself. I was never coming back as the girl they thought was just playing chef. New York was loud, chaotic, and somehow exactly what I needed. I spent my days in hot kitchens at school, my nights working part-time at a little cafe that smelled like espresso and fresh bread. I burned dishes, cut my fingers, cried in walk-in fridges, and still woke up every morning starving for more. One of my instructors recommended me for a position at a fine dining restaurant in Manhattan run by Chef Anthony Reyes, a name I had only seen in glossy magazines before. Working for him felt like being thrown into a storm. He yelled, he demanded perfection, and he noticed everything. But when he watched me plate a simple roasted carrot dish with a herb yogurt sauce I'd tweaked a dozen times, he paused and said, "You have a point of view. Don't lose it." Those 5 words did more for me than every "be more like your sister" comment I had ever heard back home. I started experimenting with ways to make comfort food lighter, fresher, still satisfying. One night after service, I filmed a quick video in the tiny staff kitchen, tossing together a grilled veggie burger with my own homemade dressing. I posted it online without thinking much. A week later, the video had blown up. People tagged me in their recreations, begging for the recipe, asking where they could buy the sauce. That was the first time it hit me that my food could exist outside of whatever kitchen I was standing in. I started bottling small batches of my dressing, selling it locally under the name Turner Kitchen. It was messy and small, and nowhere near perfect. But it was mine. I called my parents to tell them my sauce was selling out at a local market. My mom said, "That's cute, honey," then passed the phone to Danielle so she could tell me about a new collaboration with a local photographer. As usual, my little victory was just background noise to her big plans. I hung up, stared at my reflection in the dark window of my tiny apartment, and realized something important. The world out here was starting to take me seriously, even if my own family never would. Turner Kitchen stopped being just a side hustle the day a buyer from a regional grocery chain tasted my dressing at a food expo and said, "We could put this on shelves." Within a year, my small batches turned into real production runs. I was still working brutal shifts in the restaurant, but now on my days off, I was in meetings about labels, sourcing, and distribution. It was exhausting in a way my parents never saw, because all they ever commented on were the pretty photos I posted when something actually went right. A local article called "My Dressing," the kind of thing that could change how busy people eat at home, and that piece got picked up by a bigger food blog. From there, things snowballed. Turner Kitchen was accepted into a national program that supported emerging food brands, and suddenly I was flying out to conferences, doing demos, talking about healthy comfort food on tiny stages in hotel ballrooms. That's how my name ended up on the radar of people I'd grown up admiring from a distance. One cold afternoon, I was at my tiny office space tasting a new batch when an email popped up with a subject line that made my stomach drop. James Beard Foundation, nomination notification. My hands shook as I clicked it. They weren't just nominating me, they were telling me I was this year's Rising Star Chef of the Year. There would be a ceremony in Los Angeles, at a hotel I'd only ever seen on TV, and the event would be broadcast live on a national food network. For a minute, I just sat there, staring at the screen, listening to my own heartbeat. Then, despite everything, my first instinct was to share it with my family. I opened our group chat, the one that had been mostly filled with Danielle's selfies and my mom's chain messages for months, and started typing. I explained what the James Beard Awards were, how big this was, how the ceremony would be next week, live on TV, and how much it would mean to me if they could either come to LA or at least watch the broadcast. I hit send and watched the little delivered checkmark appear. 3 dots popped up, disappeared, came back. Finally, Danielle replied, "We don't have time for your pointless award. We're going to dinner that night." A second later, my mom added, "Don't blame us, honey. We already made reservations." My dad didn't say a word. He just liked my sister's message, a tiny thumbs up that landed like a punch. I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar mix of anger and numbness rising up my throat. For a second, the old version of me wanted to beg, to explain again how important this was. Instead, I swallowed hard, forced my fingers to stay steady, and typed, "That's fine. Have a nice dinner." When they answered with a couple of emojis and a joke about dessert, it hit me clear as day. If they couldn't show up for me now, standing on the edge of the biggest moment of my career, they never really would. What I didn't know then was that the universe was about to make sure they watched every second anyway. The night of the ceremony, Los Angeles felt like a different planet compared to the gray drizzle I'd left behind in Portland. The Beverly Hilton was glowing, all marble floors and chandeliers, and people who smelled like expensive perfume and success. I stood in the lobby clutching my invitation, wearing a simple but sharp black dress I'd saved up for, and for a moment I felt like an imposter who had accidentally wandered into someone else's life. Then they pinned my name badge on, and I saw it in print. Haley Turner, Turner Kitchen. I took a breath and reminded myself I hadn't been handed this for free. I had earned every blister, every burn, every sleepless night. Backstage, the air buzzed with nerves and hairspray. I caught glimpses of chefs I'd only ever seen on TV, hosts rehearsing their lines, camera operators counting down under their breath. Chef Anthony had flown in and found me by the water coolers, pulling me into a quick hug. "Whatever happens out there," he said quietly, "you belong in this room. Don't forget that." They lined us up by category, and when it was time for Rising Star, my heart hammered so hard I could barely hear the presenter speak. Somewhere, in another time zone, my family was sitting at a table at their favorite Italian place in Portland, La Trattoria Verde, ordering wine and arguing about appetizers. I knew that because Danielle had posted a boomerang of their drinks clinking together with the caption, "Family dinner night," just an hour earlier. No mention of me, no mention of the ceremony. The presenter's voice cut through my thoughts. "And this year's James Beard Foundation Rising Star Chef of the Year goes to..." There was a tiny pause that felt like it stretched on forever. Haley Turner, from Turner Kitchen in New York City. The room erupted in applause. For a second I couldn't move. Then my legs remembered how to walk, and I found myself on stage, lights burning hot on my face, trophy suddenly heavy in my hands. The host leaned in and whispered, "Smile, they're cutting to you live." And somewhere deep inside, a little version of me, standing behind a rickety farmer's market table, burst into tears. I gave my speech, short and shaky but honest. I talked about growing up feeling like what I loved was a hobby, about wanting to make food that didn't make people feel guilty or left out. I thanked the people who had believed in me when it was easier not to. I did not mention my family. When I walked off stage, my phone in my clutch buzzed so hard it felt like it was trying to escape. I ignored it. I didn't know that at that exact moment, in Portland, the TV above the bar at La Trattoria Verde had just switched over to the Food Network's live coverage of the awards. The restaurant was buzzing, full of chatter and the clink of cutlery, when the announcer's voice cut through the noise. "Up next, our Rising Star Chef of the Year, a young woman who started at farmers markets in Portland, Oregon, and is now changing the way busy people eat across the country." The camera cut to my face on stage, my name in huge letters at the bottom of the screen. Haley Turner, the host said clearly, from Turner Kitchen. At the table under the TV, my dad's fork froze halfway to his mouth. My mom slowly turned her head upward, eyes widening. Danielle's wine glass stopped just short of her lips as she squinted at the screen, as if her brain refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. Around them, people started murmuring. A server glanced from the TV to their table, putting 2 and 2 together. Someone at the bar said, "Wait, isn't that your daughter? Didn't you just say she was in food school or something?" Another diner pulled out their phone and started filming the moment, catching the exact second my parents realized the award they'd called pointless was being broadcast above their heads to the entire restaurant. On the TV, I was smiling and holding my trophy, thanking everyone who had supported my journey. At the table, my family sat in stunned silence, trapped under that same glowing screen, with nowhere to look and nowhere to hide. And that was only the beginning of their nightmare. By the time I made it back to my hotel room that night, my phone looked like it was trying to burn a hole through my clutch. I finally tossed it onto the bed, kicked off my heels, and opened the screen. The group chat with my family was at the top, lit up with more notifications than I'd seen in years. There were also Instagram tags, Twitter mentions, DMs from people I hadn't spoken to since high school. I ignored everything except the group chat and tapped it open. It was chaos. My mom had written, "Haley, we just saw you on TV. Why didn't you tell us it was this big?" My dad said, "Your mother and I are in shock. Everyone at the restaurant recognized you. The owner turned up the volume." Danielle's messages were the most frantic. "Haley, what is going on? People were filming us at dinner." Another one. "Why didn't you say it was the James Beard Awards? Do you know how stupid I looked?" Then a screenshot from her Instagram. Dozens of comments under her boomerang from dinner. Things like, "Is this the sister who skipped her own family's awards show? Imagine calling your sister's James Beard pointless." Someone had already posted a video from La Trattoria Verde to TikTok. The caption read, "When you skip your sister's pointless award and end up watching her win a James Beard on the restaurant TV." The clip showed the TV above the bar, my speech playing, then awkwardly zoomed down to my family's table, their faces pale and frozen. The video already had hundreds of thousands of views and climbing. As I scrolled, another video appeared, stitched onto the first. It was an old clip from Danielle's page that she'd clearly forgotten about, where she sat in her boutique's back room, wearing her work lanyard, laughing into the camera. "My little sister thinks she's going to change the world with salad dressing," she'd said, rolling her eyes. Like, "Girl, this is real life, not some cooking show. Your healthy sauce isn't going to pay the bills." The comment section under that one was brutal. People tagged the brand she worked for. They tagged me. They used words like jealous, mean girl, and walking red flag. I was still taking it all in when my phone lit up with Danielle's name calling. I stared at it until it stopped, then watched as another text came through. "Pick up, please." A part of me, the old part that always wanted to smooth things over, almost called back. Instead, I set the phone down and went to take off my makeup. When I finally answered her the next morning, it was because she was waiting for me in the hotel lobby. I spotted her before she saw me, hunched in a chair, eyes red, hair pulled back in a messy knot instead of perfectly styled like usual. When she looked up and saw me, she stood so fast her coffee almost spilled. "Haley," she said, voice cracking. "Thank God." We walked to a quiet corner, and for once, she didn't launch into a story about herself. She just blurted, "I got fired." I blinked. "From the boutique?" She nodded, swallowing hard. "They said the videos made the brand look bad. They said I mocked you. Mocked people trying to eat healthy. And now they're getting DMs and bad reviews. They made me pack up my stuff in front of everyone." A bitter laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. So now my healthy sauce is affecting your real life, huh? She flinched like I'd hit her. I know I was awful, she said quickly. I was jealous, okay? You actually stuck with something. You actually made it. I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think you'd actually get that far. She wiped at her eyes, smearing her mascara. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I need to start over, and I was hoping maybe you could, I don't know, introduce me to someone? Help me get a job in your world? There it was. Not just an apology, but an ask. The old Haley would have folded. Instead, I felt a calm settle over me. Danielle, I said quietly, for years, my work was a punchline to you. My biggest goals were cute, or pointless. You're not the reason I started Turner Kitchen, and you're not going to be the reason it hires anyone. She stared at me, stunned. So you're just going to let me sink? I shook my head. No, I'm going to let you swim on your own for once. Her eyes filled with fresh tears, but I didn't look away. I'm done being the extra in your story, I added, and I'm definitely not going to let my career become your backup plan now. When Danielle stood there with her eyes all red, I realized this was the first time I'd ever talked to her without shrinking myself down. We just stood in that quiet hotel corner for a second, listening to the hum of the AC and the muffled voices drifting in from the lobby. Then she let out a breath and stared at her shoes. You've changed, she said. I shrugged. Not really. I just stopped pretending that what you say doesn't hurt. She gave this small, humorless laugh. So what now? We just pretend we're not sisters? I shook my head. No, we're still sisters, but I'm done trying to prove anything to you. I'm going to focus on my life, and you're going to deal with your choices. That's it. I didn't say, like last night, but we both knew what I meant. The conversation ended in this weird, unfinished space. I gave her a quick hug, more out of habit than comfort, then headed for the elevator. As the doors slid shut, I watched her get smaller and smaller, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. The weeks after the awards were a blur. Once that broadcast aired, Turner Kitchen went from cool niche brand to everyone is suddenly talking about you. My inbox was insane. Press requests, collab offers, random investors who wanted a piece of whatever they thought I had. One of them was Logan Pierce, a guy I'd only ever seen quoted in articles about food and beverage startups. We met at this tiny cafe in LA that looked like it had been pulled straight off Pinterest, and after some small talk he put his phone face down on the table and got serious. Haley, he said, people aren't just buying your dressing, they're buying your story. Have you thought about giving them a place to actually live in it? Not just a product, but a space? I thought about all those mornings at the farmer's market in Portland, standing behind that wobbly folding table hoping someone would stop and try a sample. I thought about all the times my family waved off my recipes as some phase I'd eventually grow out of. Now here was someone talking about my food like it was a whole world. Yeah, I said. I've thought about it. I just never thought I'd get the chance this soon. Logan smiled. This isn't luck. This is what it looks like when years of work finally show up on other people's radar. So we started building. It wasn't glamorous. There were long meetings that went nowhere, menu drafts that didn't feel right, budgets that made my head hurt, and design boards that got ripped up and started over. But for once, I didn't feel like I was dragging everyone else along. I had a team that actually believed in what I was doing. They didn't treat my ideas like a cute hobby. They treated them like a brand. When the first Turner Kitchen restaurant finally opened in Los Angeles, I walked in before the doors opened and just stood there for a minute, taking it all in. Warm wood tables, an open kitchen where customers could see every plate being put together, Shelves lined with my sauces like little soldiers. It felt like my tiny childhood kitchen, and that farmer's market table and every late-night shift in New York had been melted down and poured into one space. For opening week, we didn't hire any influencers or throw some over-the-top launch party. I posted one simple video. If anyone ever told you the thing you love is pointless, this place is for you. Reservations filled faster than I thought possible. People didn't just come to eat, they came to talk. They told me about quitting corporate jobs to bake, about being laughed at for painting, streaming, writing, designing. They talked about family members who rolled their eyes at their dreams. They sat at my tables, ate my food, and looked at me like I was proof that maybe, just maybe, they weren't crazy for caring about what they loved. One night after closing, I was sitting at the bar going through emails, picking at a bowl of leftover pasta, when my phone buzzed. It was my mom. Ever since the awards, she'd been sending long texts, apologies, updates, stories about people at her school bragging that they'd seen me on TV. I always responded politely but kept it surface level. This time, I answered. "Are you busy?" she asked, quieter than I remembered. "I'm still at the restaurant," I said. "But we're almost done cleaning up." She took a breath. "A parent came in today to see me. Their daughter wants to go into culinary arts, and they're worried she won't make it." I started telling them about a girl from Portland who used to sell baked goods at the farmer's market and just won a James Beard Award. She paused. "I told them about you. I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk to her sometime, maybe over Zoom?" I sat there for a second, staring at the rows of glasses hanging upside down above the bar. There was a time that kind of thing would have made me cry on the spot. Now, all I felt was this steady warmth. "Yeah," I said. "I can do that. Have her email my team and we'll figure it out." I heard her let out a breath like she'd been holding it all day. "Thank you," she said. Then, after a beat, "I know I messed up a lot, Haley. I don't expect you to just forget it, but I'm trying to do better. I really am." A few years ago, those words would have knocked me flat. This time, they settled in gently. "I know you're trying," I said, "and I appreciate it. But you have to understand, I've built a life that doesn't depend on you believing in me. I'm not that kid begging to be seen anymore." My mom gave this small, shaky laugh. "I think this might be the first time I really get that," she said. After that, things with my parents didn't magically become perfect, but they became normal in a way they'd never been. My dad started texting me photos of meals he cooked from my videos. Bad lighting, messy plating, captions like "nailed it" with 3 thumbs-up emojis. I teased him, but underneath the jokes, I was genuinely proud of him for trying. As for Danielle, she went quiet after our hotel talk. I heard bits and pieces from my mom. She'd moved out of her fancy downtown place, found a cheaper apartment farther out, taken a retail job at a regular store with no ring light, no free clothes, no brand events. Real life. No filters. Months later, an email popped up in my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line just said, "It's me." It was from Danielle. She didn't make excuses. She told me what it felt like to pack up her desk while her coworkers watched. She wrote about sitting alone in a smaller apartment, realizing for the first time that likes and views weren't going to cover rent. She said one of her new customers, an older woman, came in talking about how she'd started eating healthier because of this young woman on TV who makes salad dressing that doesn't taste like punishment, and how proud she was of that girl. "I knew she was talking about you," Danielle wrote. I stood there, nodding and thinking, I once called that award stupid. "I don't expect you to fix anything for me. You don't owe me a job, a shout-out, or a second chance. If you never reply to this, I'll understand. I just wanted you to know I see what I did now, and I'm trying to be someone who doesn't tear other people down just because she's scared she'll never measure up. I didn't answer right away. The old me would have rushed to respond, to comfort, to patch things up. The version of me who signed that email, Haley Turner, chef/founder, knew I didn't have to. I wasn't interested in revenge for revenge's sake. The point wasn't to watch Danielle suffer. The point was that finally, people had to live with the reality they'd created. One night after a busy service, I set up my phone on the bar and hit record, planning to film a quick recipe. But what came out instead was something else. A lot of you messaged me saying your family thinks your dream is stupid. I started. They call it a phase, a hobby, a waste of time. I wish I could tell you that if you just work hard enough, they'll immediately come around. But that's not always how it goes. I talked about growing up in a house where the thing I loved most was treated like background noise. I didn't drag my family by name, but I didn't sugarcoat how it felt either. Here's what I've learned, I said. Sometimes the people who are supposed to believe in you just don't. Not right away. Maybe not ever. That doesn't mean your dream is wrong. It means you might have to plant it somewhere else first, at a market, in a tiny studio, on a small YouTube channel, whatever that looks like for you. I told them about watching my face pop up on a TV at a restaurant where my own family had gone to avoid my pointless award. I told them how that felt. Not in a petty way, but in a "this is real life" way. The sweetest kind of revenge isn't watching them choke on their words, I said. It's building a life so solid that their opinion stops being the center of your universe. When you're standing on your own 2 feet, they either adjust or they don't. That part's on them. Your job is to keep cooking, or writing, or drawing, or building, whatever your version of salad dressing is. That video got shared everywhere. People tagged siblings, parents, partners. Some comments were from kids who sounded a lot like me at 13. Others were from parents saying they were rethinking how they talked to their kids. Every comment felt like a little piece of proof that none of it had been for nothing. The long nights, the dismissive laughs, the years of being the extra in my own story. A few weeks later, after we closed one night, I stood alone in the kitchen, the lights dim, everything wiped down and in its place. The pans were hanging in a neat row. The shelves were lined with Turner kitchen bottles. The dining room beyond the pass was quiet for the first time all day. I thought about that kid version of me in Portland, hovering in the doorway while my sister talked over me, being told to get out of the kitchen and let mom work. If I could have stepped into that moment, I would have put my hands on her shoulders and told her, "Stay, keep stirring, keep tasting. One day, people will stand in line to eat what you make. One day, the same thing they laughed at will be the thing that changes everything." And maybe that's the real lesson buried inside all this drama and family mess. Sometimes the last people to believe in you are the ones who should have been first. You don't have to wait for them. You are allowed to build a life, a business, a story that makes sense to you, even if it looks ridiculous to them. If they eventually come around, that's great. If they don't, you're still the one stepping into your own kitchen, flipping on the lights, and getting to work. Our team at Revenge Mangan is dedicated to creating meaningful, well-written storylines that both entertain and inspire. We promise that this is a work of fiction designed only to share life lessons and bring useful, educational messages to our viewers. This script highlights the importance of self-worth, healthy boundaries, and the power of personal growth, even when family relationships are painful or unfair. Through the characters' mistakes and consequences, viewers can reflect on empathy, respect, and how their words and actions affect others. In this way, the story becomes not just drama, but a gentle form of education about emotional maturity and responsible behavior.